The refugee ship Silent Dawn floated through the darkness of space like a wounded animal. Around it, pieces of broken rock and twisted metal drifted slowly. These were the remains of a planet, a home, a world that had existed for millions of years, now reduced to nothing but dust and debris. Inside the ship, 400 survivors huddled together in corridors and cargo bays. They were a beautiful species, with skin that glowed softly like moonlight on water. Their skin changed colors with their emotions, shifting from pale blue when calm to deep purple when afraid. Right now, most of them glowed the dark purple of fear and grief. Sat in the medical bay, her back pressed against the cold metal wall. In her arms, wrapped in a thin blanket, her newborn daughter slept peacefully. The baby was only 3 days old. She had been born during the escape, during those terrible hours when their world was being torn apart by enemy weapons. Had named her, which meant one in the old language. One hope, one future, one reason to keep breathing. The ship's lights flickered again. They had been flickering for hours now, each time staying dark a little longer. The air felt thin and stale. Knew what this meant. Everyone knew. The life support systems were failing. There was not enough oxygen for everyone to survive the 3-day journey to the nearest space station. A voice crackled over the ship's speakers. It was Captain, an old with skin so pale it was almost white. His voice was tired and broken. "My people," he said, "I must tell you something difficult. Our oxygen reserves have fallen to critical levels. At our current rate, we will run out of breathable air in 36 hours. But our destination is still 72 hours away. There is no other ship coming to help us. We have sent distress signals, but no one has responded. We are alone." Pulled closer to her chest, the baby stirred but did not wake. "After much discussion with the council," the captain continued, "we have made a terrible decision. It is the only way to ensure that some of us survive. We will conduct a lottery. Half of us will draw white stones. Half will draw black stones. Those with white stones will remain in the main sections of the ship. Those with black stones will be moved to the rear cargo bay, which will be sealed off from the rest of the vessel." A woman nearby began to cry. Understood. The rear cargo bay, sealed off. Those people would not be given oxygen. They would fall asleep slowly and never wake up. It was, the captain probably thought, a merciful death. Better than everyone suffocating together in panic. "The lottery will begin in 1 hour," the captain said. "May the ancestors guide your hands." The speaker went silent. Looked down at her daughter. Skin glowed a soft, peaceful blue. She was dreaming, perhaps of warmth and milk and her mother's heartbeat. She did not know that her world had ended. She did not know that she might not live to see her first sunrise. "I will not let you die," whispered. "Whatever happens to me, you will live. Do you understand? You will live." The hour passed like a lifetime. Watched families holding each other. She watched old couples kiss and young children play, not understanding why their parents were crying. She watched a father teach his son a prayer, and a grandmother braid her granddaughter's hair one final time. Then the lottery began. A council member walked through the ship with 2 bags. One bag held white stones. One bag held black stones. Each person would reach into both bags at the same time and pull out 1 stone. The color they drew was the color of their fate. When the council member reached, she looked at her baby first. "The child draws separately," the council member said softly. "She has her own fate." Nodded. Her hands trembled as she reached into the bags. She felt the smooth stones against her fingers. She grabbed one from each bag and pulled them out. She opened her right hand first, white. Then her left hand, black. She stared at the black stone. It seemed to absorb the light around it like a tiny piece of the void. Her death held in her palm. "The child," the council member said, "could not move." Another council member gently took from her arms, still wrapped in her blanket. They held the baby's tiny hand and guided it into the bags. His fingers closed around a stone. "White," Relief flooded through so powerfully that she nearly collapsed. Her baby would live. Her daughter would survive. Nothing else mattered. The council member returned to her arms. "You have 17 minutes to say goodbye," she said quietly. "Then those with black stones must report to the rear cargo bay." 17 minutes, 1,020 seconds. That was all the time had left with her daughter. She walked to a quiet corner of the medical bay and sat down on the floor. She unwrapped the blanket slightly so she could see his face. The baby's eyes opened, revealing irises that swirled with colors like galaxies. She looked up at her mother and made a small sound, almost like a question. "My beautiful girl," said, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "I need to tell you something. I need to tell you everything, and I only have a few minutes, so please listen." Blinked and grabbed her mother's finger. "Your father was a good man. He was brave and kind, and he loved you before you were even born. He died protecting us when the bombs fell. He gave his life so we could reach this ship. You have his eyes, did you know that? The same colors, the same light." His voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. "I want you to know that you are loved. Even if you never remember my face, even if you grow up not knowing my name, you are loved. I loved you from the moment I knew you existed. I loved you when I felt you move inside me. I loved you when I held you for the first time and saw your tiny fingers reaching for the light." A nurse approached slowly. She was an older woman with gentle eyes. "I will take care of her," she promised. "I drew a white stone. I will find her a good family at the station. She will be raised with love, I swear it." Nodded, unable to speak. The nurse sat beside her and waited. The minutes passed too quickly. Each second felt like a heartbeat, racing toward an end that was not ready to face. "It is time," the nurse finally said. Pressed her lips to his forehead. She breathed in her daughter's scent, trying to memorize it. She felt the warmth of the baby's skin against her face. She listened to the soft rhythm of his breathing. "I love you," she whispered. "I will always love you. Even when I am gone, I will be watching over you from wherever the ancestors take me. Be strong, be kind. Live a good life. Live for both of us." She handed to the nurse. Her arms felt empty. Her heart felt like it was being torn from her chest. She turned toward the corridor that led to the rear cargo bay, where the others with black stones were already walking. Their skin glowed the deep purple of acceptance, of surrender, of goodbye. Took one step, then another. Then the ship shook violently, and alarms began to scream. Through the nearest viewport, something appeared in the darkness. A ship, a vessel unlike anything had ever seen. It was smaller than the Silent Dawn, but it moved with purpose and speed, its engines blazing with blue fire. And on its hull, painted in white letters that could not read, was a single word. A human word. Hope was a strange thing, had given up on it. But as she watched that small ship racing toward them, she felt something stir in her chest. Something that felt like the beginning of a miracle. Lieutenant Park had been flying patrol routes in Sector 7G for 6 hours. It was boring work. Nothing ever happened in this part of space. It was too far from the main trade routes, too empty, too quiet. Most pilots hated being assigned here, did not mind. He liked the silence. It gave him time to think. His ship was called the Swift Arrow. It was a small patrol vessel, built for speed and scanning, not for combat. The cockpit was cramped, and the coffee machine had been broken for 3 weeks, but had learned to love this little ship. It was his home for 12-hour shifts, and he had decorated the dashboard with photos of his family and a small plastic figure of a tiger that his nephew had given him. He was thinking about what he would eat for dinner when his ship's AI spoke. "Lieutenant Park, I have detected a distress beacon. Origin, distance, 47,000 kilometers. Sat up straight, are you sure?" "Confirmed. The beacon indicates a refugee vessel in critical condition. Life support failure. Approximately 400 passengers. 400 people dying." His hands moved across the controls without hesitation. He changed course and pushed the engines to maximum speed. The swift arrow jumped forward, racing toward the beacon. "Contact command," he ordered. "Tell them what we found. Request immediate backup." "Connecting now." A few seconds later, a voice crackled through the speakers. It was Commander Shin from the regional station. "Lieutenant Park, we received your message. What is your status?" "I'm heading toward the ship now, Commander. They need help immediately." There was a pause. Then the commander spoke again, his voice careful and cold. "Negative, Lieutenant. Do not approach. Refugee vessels are classified as high risk. There may be disease or contamination. We cannot send rescue ships without proper quarantine protocols in place." Felt his jaw tighten. "Commander, with respect, those protocols will take hours. These people don't have hours." "That is not your decision to make. You are ordered to maintain distance and observe only. Do not board the vessel. Do not make contact. Is that understood?" Looked at the viewport. In the distance he could see the ship now. It was large and old, covered in scars and burn marks. It was drifting, not flying. Pieces of debris floated around it. He could see lights flickering through the windows. 400 people. Men, women, children. Dying because no one wanted to take a risk. "Lieutenant Park, did you hear me? Respond." Reached for the communication switch. He thought about his career. He thought about the rules he had sworn to follow. He thought about the military code that had guided his life for 15 years. Then he thought about the people on that ship, gasping for air in the darkness. He turned off the communication channel. The swift arrow continued toward the vessel at full speed. As he got closer, could see how badly damaged the ship was. The hull had holes in it, sealed with emergency patches that were already failing. One of the engines was completely dead. Smoke drifted from a section near the rear. This ship had been through hell, and it was barely holding together. He brought the swift arrow alongside the vessel and activated the docking clamps. The two ships connected with a heavy thunk. Grabbed his emergency kit and strapped on extra oxygen canisters. He took as many as he could carry, 4 on his back and 2 in his hands. He also grabbed his plasma cutter. The airlock was probably damaged or locked. He would need to burn through it. He walked to his ship's airlock and pressed the release button. The door opened, revealing the outer hull of the vessel. It was dark and cold, covered in frost and strange symbols that could not read. He lifted the plasma cutter and began to burn. The metal glowed orange and melted away. Hot sparks flew in all directions, kept cutting, making a hole big enough for him to climb through. The air that rushed out of the ship was thin and stale. It smelled like fear and desperation. He climbed inside. The corridor was dark. Emergency lights flickered red, casting strange shadows on the walls. Could hear sounds in the distance. Crying, coughing, prayers spoken in a language he did not understand. He started walking, following the sounds. The first he found were huddled in a storage room. They were a family, 2 adults and 3 children. Their skin was pale and barely glowing. They looked up at him with wide eyes full of terror. Realized how he must look to them. A stranger in a strange suit, carrying equipment they had never seen, speaking a language they did not know. He knelt down slowly and placed one of the oxygen canisters in front of them. He pressed the release valve, and clean air began to flow out. "Breathe," he said, pointing to the canister. "Breathe." The father understood. He pulled his children close to the canister and made them inhale the fresh oxygen. Color began to return to their skin. The youngest child stopped coughing. Nodded and stood up. He had more people to find. He moved through the ship like a man on fire. Every room he entered he found more. Some were unconscious. Some were barely alive. He gave them oxygen, shook them awake, pointed them toward the cleaner air near his entry point. His translator struggled with the language, but he learned quickly that some words were universal. Words like help and live and please. Finally, he reached the medical bay. It was crowded with people. Some were injured, wrapped in bandages that were dirty and old. Others were simply too weak to move. The air here was the worst, so thin that had trouble breathing even with his own suit filtering it. And in the corner he saw a woman. She was young and beautiful, with skin that glowed a soft blue despite everything. In her arms, she held a baby wrapped in a thin blanket. She was crying, but not with sadness. She was crying with something that looked like hope. Near her feet saw a black stone. He did not know what it meant, not yet, but he would learn, and when he did, it would change everything. He walked to the center of the medical bay and raised his voice. "Everyone listen to me," he shouted. His translator converted his words into with a slight delay. "My name is Park. I am a human. I am here to help you. I have called for more ships. More help is coming. No one is going to die today. Do you understand me?" They stared at him. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply stared as if he were a creature from a dream. A very old man stepped forward. His skin was almost white and he walked with a cane. This was the captain guest. "Human," the old man said, "do you know who we are?" "You are people who need help," replied. "We are. Our world was destroyed by the hegemony. Every other species in this sector has refused to help us. They say we bring bad luck. They say helping us will make them targets. They say we are already dead, so why waste resources on corpses?" The captain stepped closer until he was right in front of. His eyes were ancient and filled with pain. "Why are you different, human? Why did you come?" Thought about the question. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived a war on Earth long ago. He thought about her stories of strangers who had helped her when no one else would. He thought about the promise he had made when he joined the fleet. "Because," he said simply, "it was the right thing to do." The captain stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he began to weep. And behind him, 400 began to hope. Watch the human move through the ship. She had never seen anything like him. He was solid and heavy, with tanned skin and dark eyes that seemed to burn with some inner fire. His movements were quick and purposeful. He did not waste a single step. He did not pause to rest. He simply worked, hour after hour, as if saving 400 strangers was the only thing in the universe that mattered. She had returned to the medical bay after the alarm stopped. The human had told everyone to wait, to stay calm, to keep breathing the oxygen he had brought. He had said more help was coming. Did not know if she believed him. She had stopped believing in help a long time ago. But she watched him anyway. He moved from room to room with canisters of oxygen, placing them where the air was thinnest. He found emergency foam in his kit and sprayed it over cracks in the hull, sealing them tight. He found electrical problems and fixed them with tools she did not recognize. He carried elderly who could not walk, lifting them in his arms as if they weighed nothing. And he talked the whole time. His translator converted his words into, but the translation was imperfect. Sometimes his sentences were strange and broken, but his meaning was always clear. "You are safe now. Help is coming. Stay strong. Breathe. You are safe." He said these words again and again, to everyone he met. Began to wonder if he was saying them to himself as much as to maybe he needed to believe them too. After 3 hours, the human finally stopped. He was standing in the main corridor, leaning against a wall, breathing heavily. His face was covered in sweat. His hands were shaking. Realized that he had been pushing himself beyond his limits, ignoring his own exhaustion to help others. She approached him slowly, still sleeping in her arms. "You should rest," she said. The human looked at her. Up close she could see how tired he was. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. His lips were dry and cracked. But when he saw the baby, something in his face softened. "Is she?" he asked. "Yes, her name is." "That is a beautiful name." He smiled weakly. "She is very small. She was born 3 days ago, during the escape. paused. She almost did not make it. I almost did not make it. The human nodded slowly. He seemed to understand that there was more to the story, but he did not ask. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small packet of food. It was some kind of bar wrapped in shiny material. "Here," he said, offering it to her. "You need to eat for your strength for the baby." Hesitated. "I cannot take your food. I have more on my ship. Please take it." She took the bar. It tasted strange, sweet and grainy, but her body accepted it eagerly. She had not eaten anything in almost 2 days. "Thank you," she said, "for the food, for everything. I do not understand why you are doing this." The human was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "On my world there is a saying, no one gets left behind. It means that when people are in trouble, you help them. You do not ask questions. You do not think about whether they deserve help. You just help. But you do not know us. We are strangers, we are. So, blinked other species. They fear us. They think we bring bad luck. They think the hegemony will punish anyone who helps us." The human made a sound that did not understand at first. Then she realized he was laughing. It was a short, bitter laugh without much humor. "The hegemony," he said. "I have heard of them. They destroy worlds and call it justice. They murder millions and call it order." He shook his head. "On Earth, we have a word for people like that. We call them bullies. And the thing about bullies is that they only have power if people are afraid of them. Are humans not afraid?" The human smiled. It was a strange smile, full of sadness and fire at the same time. "Humans are afraid of many things," he said. "We are afraid of the dark. We are afraid of being alone. We are afraid of death. But we do not let our fear control us. We learned a long time ago that some things are more important than being safe." "Like what?" "Like doing what is right, like protecting the innocent, like standing up when everyone else sits down." Looked at him for a long time. On her world, before it was destroyed, there had been stories about creatures from other stars, beings of light who came to help the suffering. Angels, the old stories called them, messengers of the gods. Looking at this tired, sweating human with his broken translator and his emergency oxygen canisters, thought she finally understood those stories. Not all angels had wings. Some had patrol ships and stubborn hearts. A council member approached them. It was the same woman who had conducted the lottery. Her face was troubled. "Human," she said, "the captain wishes to speak with you. There is something you should know." The human stood up straight, pushing his exhaustion aside. "What is it?" The council member led them to a room near the rear of the ship. It was a large cargo bay, and inside, dozens sat in silence. Their skin glowed the deep purple of acceptance. They looked like people who had already said their goodbyes. "What is this?" the human asked. The captain stepped forward. He explained about the lottery, about the white stones and the black stones, about the plan to seal this room and let these people die quietly so that others could live. Watched the human's face as he listened. She saw confusion first, then understanding, then something that made her take a step back. It was rage. Not the hot, explosive rage that burned quickly and faded. This was something colder, deeper. It was the rage of someone who had seen injustice and could not accept it. "You are going to let them die," the human said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the room like thunder. "You are going to seal this room and let them suffocate." "We had no choice," the captain said. "The oxygen." "There is always a choice." The human pulled out his communication device. His hands were steady now, all exhaustion forgotten. "Command, this is Lieutenant Park. I know you are listening. I know you told me to stay away. I am going to ignore that order now." He paused. "I need every available ship to my coordinates, every single one. I do not care about protocols. I do not care about quarantine. There are 400 people on this vessel, including children and elderly and a baby who is 3 days old. They are all going to live. Do you understand me? Every single one of them is going to live." Static crackled from the device. Then a voice spoke. "Lieutenant Park, you are in direct violation of. Send the ship's commander, or I swear I will spend the rest of my life telling everyone in the galaxy how the Terran fleet let 400 refugees die because they were afraid of paperwork." Silence. Then finally, ships are being dispatched, ETA 6 hours. The human turned off the device. He looked at in the cargo bay, the ones with black stones, the ones who had been waiting to die. "Get up," he said. "Go back to your families. The lottery is over. No one is dying today." They stared at him. They did not move. Stepped forward. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her black stone. She held it up so everyone could see. Then she dropped it on the floor. "You heard him," she said. "The lottery is over." One by one, they stood. One by one, they dropped their black stones. One by one, they walked out of the cargo bay and back to their families. The human watched them go. His face was still hard, still angry, but thought she saw something else in his eyes. She thought she saw tears. The first ship arrived 4 hours later. Then another. Then another. By the time the sun from a distant star lit up the darkness, 17 human vessels surrounded the silent dawn like a protective shield. Stood at the viewport and watched them come. Some were small patrol ships like Swift Arrow. Others were larger medical vessels with bright red symbols on their hulls. One was a massive cargo ship, so big that it made the refugee vessel look like a toy. She had never seen so many ships in one place. She had never seen such coordination, such speed, such purpose. And all of it was for them, for the people that everyone else had abandoned. Captain of the Horizon's Edge took command of the rescue operation. She was a woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Her voice came through the speakers on the silent dawn, calm and clear. "Attention all passengers. This is Captain of the Terran fleet. Medical teams are boarding your vessel now. Please remain calm and allow them to help you. Food, water, and medical supplies will be distributed shortly. If you have urgent medical needs, please make yourself known to our teams. We are here to help." The words sounded impossible. After everything they had been through, after being turned away by every species they had encountered, these humans were simply here. No conditions, no demands, just help. The medical teams entered through the holes that had cut in the hull. They wore white suits and carried bags full of equipment. They moved quickly but gently, checking on the sick and injured, giving water to the dehydrated, wrapping blankets around those who were cold. One of the medics was a young woman named. She had a kind face and soft hands. She found sitting within the medical bay and knelt down beside her. "May I check your baby?" asked. Nodded and handed to her carefully. Examined the infant with expert hands. She checked his breathing, her heartbeat, her skin color. She looked into his eyes with a small light. Through it all, watched her with curious, colorful eyes, not crying, not afraid. "She is healthy," said finally. "A little underweight, but that is normal given the circumstances. She is a strong baby." Tears ran down his face. Thank you so much." Smiled and returned to her mother's arms. Then she began to hum softly as she continued her work with other patients. It was a melody that did not recognize, but it was beautiful and soothing. Several children stopped crying when they heard it. They looked at the human medic with wonder in their eyes. In another part of the ship, a human soldier named was teaching a group of children a game. It involved clapping hands in a pattern while singing a silly song. The children did not understand the words, but they understood the rhythm. They laughed as they tried to keep up, their hands glowing bright blue with happiness. It was the first time. Many of them had laughed since their world was destroyed. The cargo ship brought food. Not military rations or emergency supplies, but real food. Bread that was still warm. Fruit that was fresh and colorful. Soup that smelled like home. The human crew had cooked meals for 400 people, using their own supplies, asking nothing in return. An old woman sat in the corridor, eating a bowl of soup with shaking hands. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "I had forgotten," she said to no one in particular. "I had forgotten what kindness felt like." The engineers worked on the Silent Dawn systems, stabilizing the life support, repairing the hull breaches properly, fixing the broken engine. They talked to the engineers in technical language that the translators struggled with, but somehow they understood each other. They pointed at problems and nodded at solutions. They worked side by side, human and two species that had never met before, united by the simple goal of keeping everyone alive. Found sleeping in a corner of the main corridor. He had finally collapsed from exhaustion. He was sitting against the wall, his head drooped forward, his hands still holding an oxygen canister upright so a nearby family could breathe easier. Even in sleep, he was trying to help. Sat down beside him quietly, careful not to wake him. Was sleeping too, warm and safe in her blanket. For the first time in days, felt something she had thought she would never feel again. Peace. She looked at the sleeping human. His face was young and tired at the same time. He had dark hair that was messy and dirty from hours of hard work. His uniform was stained and torn. He was not handsome by standards, but there was something beautiful about him anyway. Something in the way he had fought for people he did not know. Something in the way he had stood up when everyone else had given up. "I was ready to die," she whispered, not knowing if he could hear her. "I had accepted it. I thought the universe was cruel and cold and there was no hope left for people like us. I thought we were alone." She looked at sleeping face. "But then you came. You and your 17 ships. You and your medics who hum lullabies. You and your soldiers who teach games to frighten children. You and your engineers who fix broken things without being asked." She wiped her eyes. "I did not know beings like you existed. I did not know kindness could be so strong. I thought strength meant weapons and power and the ability to destroy. But you have shown me a different kind of strength. The strength to help when it is easier to look away. The strength to care when caring costs you something." Stirred in his sleep but did not wake. He mumbled something in his language that the translator could not catch. It sounded like a name. Smiled sadly. "You have family somewhere, don't you? People who love you. People who are waiting for you to come home. And yet you risked everything for strangers. You disobeyed your orders. You put your career and maybe your life in danger, all for people you had never met." She reached out and gently adjusted his head, so it rested more comfortably against the wall. "I do not know how to thank you for what you have done. I do not know if there are words big enough, but I want you to know that I will remember. I will remember your name. I will tell my daughter about you when she is old enough to understand. I will make sure she knows that when our world ended and everyone abandoned us, one human refused to let us die." She paused. "And maybe that is the most important thing anyone has ever done. Not conquering planets, not building empires, just refusing to let strangers die when you have the power to save them." The ships traveled together for 3 days. The human vessels surrounded the Silent Dawn, sharing power and oxygen and supplies. They moved as one, a convoy of hope crossing the darkness between stars. And when they finally arrived at the space station, looked out the viewport and saw thousands of faces pressed against the windows. Humans. Hundreds of humans who had heard the news and come to welcome the refugees. They were holding signs. The translator struggled with the words but understood the message. "Welcome home. You are safe now. You are not alone." 3 months had passed since the rescue. Stood on the balcony of her small apartment in New, a human colony world that had opened its doors to the refugees. The sunset painted the sky in colors she had never seen on her home planet. Orange and pink and purple and gold, bleeding into each other like watercolors on paper. 2 moons hung in the distance, one large and silver, one small and red. It was beautiful, strange but beautiful. In her arms, watched the sunset with wide, curious eyes. She was bigger now, stronger, her skin glowing a healthy blue. She had started to make sounds that almost sounded like words, reaching for things, grabbing her mother's fingers, smiling when she recognized faces. The apartment was small but comfortable. The humans had provided everything: furniture, clothes, food, even toys for the baby. They had asked nothing in return except that they try to build new lives, try to heal, try to find happiness again. It was not easy. Many refugees struggled with the memories of what they had lost. Some could not sleep without seeing their burning world in their dreams. Others could not eat without remembering those who had starved on the journey. The trauma was deep, and healing would take years, maybe generations. But slowly, painfully, life continued. Children went to human schools, learning to read and write in a new language. Adults found work in factories, farms, hospitals, wherever their skills were needed. Elders sat in parks and told stories to mixed groups of children, human and together, sharing the history of a world that no longer existed. And sometimes, when the pain became too much, the humans were there. Counselors who listened without judgment, neighbors who brought food and sat in silence, strangers who offered hugs to people they had never met. Had cried many times in the past 3 months, but she had also laughed. She had made friends with a human woman named who lived next door and had a son the same age as. She had found work teaching language and culture at the local university, helping humans understand her people. She had started to believe that the future might be something other than darkness. There was a knock at the door. Opened it and found standing there. He looked different than she remembered. His uniform was clean and pressed. His hair was neatly combed. The exhaustion had faded from his eyes, replaced by something warmer, something peaceful. In his hands, he held a small package wrapped in colorful paper. "Hello," he said, suddenly shy. "I hope I am not bothering you." "Never," said, stepping aside. "Please come in." Entered the apartment and looked around. He seemed nervous, which found strange. This was the same man who had his commanders and boarded a dying ship alone. But standing in her living room, holding a wrapped gift, he seemed like a completely different person. "I brought something for," he said. "It is. I am not sure if Bobbies like the same things as human Bobbies, but I thought." He trailed off and handed her the package. Unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small stuffed animal. It was soft and white, with long ears and button eyes. She did not recognize the creature. "It is called a rabbit," explained. "On Earth they are gentle animals. They represent luck and new beginnings. Human Bobbies love them. I thought maybe might too." Held the rabbit up for to see. The baby's eyes widened. Her hands reached out, grabbing for the soft toy. When gave it to her, pulled it close and made a happy cooing sound, her skin flashing bright blue. "She loves it," said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." They stood in awkward silence for a moment, then spoke again. "I heard what happened to you after the rescue." Nodded slowly. "I was disciplined for disobeying orders. They wanted to remove me from the fleet. But they did not. No, too many people spoke up for me. The media covered the story. Millions of humans saw what happened and demanded answers. In the end, they promoted me instead of punishing me." He laughed softly. "Politics are strange." "You are a hero," said. "To my people, you are more than a hero. You are the man who changed our destiny." "I did not do it alone. 17 ships came. Hundreds of people helped. But you were the first. You were the one who refused to look away. That matters." Was quiet. He walked to the balcony door and looked out at the sunset. The orange light reflected in his dark eyes. "When I was a child," he said, "my grandmother told me stories about the old days on Earth, terrible days full of war and suffering. She survived things that no person should have to survive. But she also told me about the people who helped her, strangers who shared their food, neighbors who hid her from soldiers, a doctor who worked for free because people needed healing. He turned to face. She told me that the universe is full of darkness, but she also told me that humans carry a light inside them, a small flame that refuses to go out, no matter how strong the wind blows. She said that flame is called compassion, and she said it is the most human thing about us. He looked at who was still hugging her rabbit. When I found your ship, I did not think about politics or protocols or consequences. I just saw people who needed help, and I remembered my grandmother's words. I remembered that the flame inside me demanded that I act. Felt tears forming in her eyes again. She had cried so much in the past 3 months that she thought she might be empty, but apparently there were always more tears to be found. In my culture, she said, when someone saves a life, they become forever connected to that life. They become responsible for it in a way. They become family. She stepped closer too. You saved my life. You saved my daughter's life. You saved 400 of my people. By tradition, you are part of my family now, part of's family, whether you want to be or not. Smiled, it was a real smile, warm and genuine. I think I can live with that, he said. Made a sound, reaching toward with one tiny hand. He hesitated, then gently took her hand in his. The baby's fingers curled around his thumb, holding tight. In that moment, standing in a small apartment on a colony world far from Earth, a human and a baby watched the sunset together. Behind them was a universe full of darkness and cruelty and fear, but in front of them was light. Orange and pink and purple and gold, painted across the sky like a promise. Years later, historians would write about the events that brought humans and together. They would analyze the political implications, the economic benefits, the cultural exchanges. They would debate policies and treaties and trade agreements. But they remembered something simpler. They remembered a human who refused to let strangers die. They remembered a mother who was willing to give everything for her child. They remembered a baby named who grew up with 2 families, 2 cultures, 2 worlds to call home. Became the first ambassador to Earth. She spent her life building bridges between species, teaching humans about culture and about human spirit. She carried her stuffed rabbit with her to every important meeting, a reminder of the man who had given it to her, the man who had taught her that kindness was the most powerful force in the universe. And when she spoke to crowds of millions, telling the story of how her people were saved, she always ended with the same words. The galaxy believed that survival required cruelty, that space was cold and only the ruthless could endure, that helping others was weakness and compassion was a flaw. She would pause and smile. Humanity proved them wrong, one ship at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one stubborn refusal to let strangers die at a time. They proved that strength and compassion are not opposites, they are partners. They are the 2 wings that lift us toward the stars. In the back of every crowd, an old man with gray hair and tired eyes would watch her speak. He never asked for recognition. He never wanted praise. He simply watched the baby he had saved grow into a woman who changed the galaxy. And sometimes, when no one was looking, he would wipe tears from his eyes. Because some things are more important than being safe. Some things are more important than following orders. Some things are worth risking everything. And love in all its forms is the most human thing of all.